Imagine being locked inside a freezing metal coffin, violently strapped into a forced fetal position, completely paralyzed while hurtling through a deadly vacuum at 17,500 miles per hour. The glorious, sprawling cosmic adventure that Hollywood sold you is a lie. For over half a century, surviving spaceflight meant enduring a relentless, claustrophobic nightmare. This is Astro Trivia, and today we are ripping away the romanticized veil of orbital exploration. We are tracking the brutal, highly classified evolution of spacecraft interiors, from agonizing flying torture chambers to the multi-million-dollar floating smart apartments of tomorrow. When the space race kicked off, engineers weren't designing for human comfort. They were engineering for mere survival. The earliest capsules, like the Mercury program, were so absurdly tight that astronauts joked you didn't climb into the spacecraft, you put it on like a stiff, incredibly uncomfortable suit of armor. You were basically canned meat, a biological payload with a heartbeat. But if you want to talk about true, psychological endurance, we have to talk about the legendary, yet notoriously brutal, Russian Soyuz spacecraft. For more than 60 years, the Soyuz has been the undeniable workhorse of human spaceflight. But step inside and the illusion of majestic space travel shatters instantly. Picture this: 3 fully grown adults crammed shoulder to shoulder in a descent module with less than 3.5 cubic meters of livable volume. That is roughly the size of a standard walk-in closet, but stuffed with metal life support tanks, exposed wiring, and unyielding cargo. To fit inside, crews are strapped into custom-molded Cosbeck seats that violently force their bodies into a tight, fetal position. Your knees are pressed dangerously close to your chest. Your spine is awkwardly curved. You cannot stretch. You cannot walk around. You just sit there, locked in place, for hours or even days at a time. It is a masterclass in psychological torture. American astronaut Shannon Lucid, who spent significant time training and flying on Russian hardware, didn't mince words. She explicitly noted that for anyone with even a slight hint of claustrophobia, being sealed inside the Soyuz feels like descending straight into a suffocating hell. The air feels heavy, the metallic walls press in on you, and a single wrong movement could bump a critical life support valve. This era of engineering was dominated by a strictly systems-first mentality. Space agencies didn't view astronauts as comfortable passengers. They treated them as highly trained, passive operators who simply had to endure the extreme physical punishment required to reach orbit. Comfort was a laughable luxury. You weren't there to enjoy the view. You were there to survive the ride. Now, you might think the introduction of NASA's Space Shuttle changed all of this. And physically, yes, it was a massive step up. Suddenly, astronauts had a multi-deck vehicle. They could unstrap, float around, and actually stretch their limbs. But while the physical prison was slightly expanded, the psychological and cognitive prison only tightened its grip. The Space Shuttle's cockpit was an absolute maze of analog intimidation. It was crammed with over 400 individual switches, mechanical levers, dials, and blinking indicator lights. It looked less like a spaceship and more like the control room of a nuclear power plant from the 1970s. And behind those intimidating gray panels, over 1,000 kilograms of heavy, complex wiring slithered beneath the floorboards and behind the walls, linking a delicate web of legacy systems. Every single switch was a potential single point of failure. If one gauge malfunctioned or one breaker tripped, the crew had to scramble through dense, phone book-sized emergency checklists to avoid a catastrophic disaster. This wasn't a relaxing flight. It was a high-stakes, hyper-vigilant job. Operating the shuttle meant constantly scanning your environment, terrified of missing a tiny yellow warning light. The launch phase alone was notoriously brutal. Massive solid rocket boosters essentially strapped the crew to a controlled explosion, delivering a ride so violent and vibrating that astronauts literally couldn't read the instrument panels. Their vision blurred, their teeth rattled. They just had to grip their armrests, endure the bone-shaking turbulence, and pray the engineering held together. Veteran astronaut Chris Hadfield perfectly captured this terrifying reality. He notoriously pointed out that the space shuttle was arguably the most dangerously complicated flying machine ever conceived by human minds. It was an engineering marvel, absolutely, but it was incredibly unforgiving. The sheer volume of manual tasks demanded near-perfect focus from the crew under immense physical stress. They were essentially flying a winged brick strapped to millions of pounds of explosive fuel. The shuttle gave humanity the illusion of a spacious ride, but underneath that pristine white exterior, it was a ticking bomb of cognitive overload. Then, SpaceX entered the chat and completely obliterated the old aerospace playbook. When developing the Crew Dragon, they didn't just iterate on legacy hardware, they fundamentally redefined the human factors of spaceflight. The paradigm shifted from treating the astronaut as a glorified, overstressed mechanic to empowering them as a top-level decision-maker. Instead of walking into a claustrophobic analog nightmare, stepping inside Crew Dragon feels like walking into a high-end sci-fi simulation. The dense forest of analog dials is gone. In its place, the cockpit features 3 massive, sleek touchscreens that handle practically everything. SpaceX utilized a brilliant user interface concept called progressive disclosure. The philosophy is simple but revolutionary. Only show the astronauts the exact information they need at any given second, and keep the rest of the complex data hidden until it is actually required. This means the Dragon is driven 99% by advanced software. But aerospace is still a deadly game, so what about that remaining 1%? SpaceX retained around 30 critical tactile hardware buttons. These are hardwired directly into the systems for extreme emergencies, like putting out a fire or initiating a launch abort. It is the perfect marriage of modern digital convenience and old-school mechanical redundancy. And the physical environment? It is a masterpiece of ergonomics. The capsule boasts a massive 9.3 cubic meters of livable volume. Finally, humans can actually stretch their legs and move. The crew sits in custom-molded, lightweight carbon fiber seats wrapped in luxurious Alcantara leather, the exact same high-end material you would find in a $1 million hypercar. Russian cosmonaut Anna Kikina, who was thoroughly trained on the agonizingly cramped Soyuz, famously stated that flying on Crew Dragon felt like lounging in a modern studio apartment. But this isn't just about looking cool for the cameras. The psychological benefits are mathematically proven. Extensive human factors studies revealed that crews using Dragon's intuitive interface spent 22% less time anxiously scanning their peripheral vision for rogue warning lights. Even more incredibly, astronauts experienced a 12% improvement in heart rate variability, or HRV. In physiological terms, that means their nervous systems were significantly calmer. They were relaxed, focused, and actually enjoying the ride. For the first time in the history of human spaceflight, psychological comfort was treated as a primary engineering parameter, not just an afterthought. SpaceX proved that a spacecraft didn't need to look and feel like a terrifying utilitarian weapon. By wrapping state-of-the-art life support systems in a beautifully refined aesthetic, they completely eradicated the survival mode anxiety that plagued previous generations of space explorers. But a sleek, beautiful dashboard and leather seats mean absolutely nothing if the engineers ignore basic human biology. Because the moment you hit microgravity, the human body goes completely haywire. Without Earth's gravity pulling blood and fluids down into your legs, everything immediately rushes upward into your chest and head. Scientists call this bizarre phenomenon the cephalad fluid shift. The physical effects are rapid and undeniable. Astronauts' faces get intensely puffy, their heads feel uncomfortably swollen, and their legs visibly shrink into what they jokingly call bird legs. But here is the critical problem. When all that fluid pools in your upper body, your brain gets tricked. It signals your kidneys, screaming that you are suddenly overloaded with water. The body's immediate defense mechanism is to purge that liquid as fast as possible. This triggers a biological process called diuresis. The bottom line? Within the first 2 hours of reaching orbit, astronauts experience an intense, overwhelming urge to pee. Historically, that biological reality caused some of the most embarrassing and dangerous moments in aerospace history. Let's rewind to 1961. Alan Shepard was strapped into the Freedom 7 capsule, ready to become the first American in space. The mission was only supposed to last 15 minutes, so NASA engineers, in their infinite wisdom, didn't bother to install a toilet. But the launch was repeatedly delayed. Hour after hour ticked by. Trapped in his rigid suit, Shepard finally cracked and radioed Mission Control, begging them to let him out to relieve himself. Their answer? A flat no. They couldn't afford to unseal the hatch and ruin the launch window. Left with absolutely no alternative, Shepard had to wet himself right there in his custom-fitted, highly wired spacesuit. NASA technicians held their collective breath, terrified that the warm salt water would short-circuit his medical sensors and electrocute him right on the launch pad. Luckily, his thick cotton undergarments absorbed the disaster. But that single soaking wet moment fundamentally altered the trajectory of orbital engineering. It proved a hard, undeniable truth to every brilliant mind at NASA. If you are sending human beings into the cosmos, a functional space toilet isn't a luxury item. It is an absolute, non-negotiable. Let's talk about how modern engineering tackles this biological inevitability. SpaceX's approach with the Crew Dragon is aggressively minimalist and highly functional. Their toilet is tucked neatly into the ceiling of the capsule. It doesn't rely on a maze of complicated valves. It just uses a powerful, reliable suction fan to pull waste exactly where it needs to go in a zero-gravity environment. But even SpaceX isn't immune to messy, unpredictable failures. During the all-civilian Inspiration 4 mission, a tube carrying urine actually broke loose, creating a hidden, floating biohazard beneath the floor panels. But here is the genius of SpaceX's iterative design culture. They moved with terrifying speed. Within weeks, they inspected their entire fleet, ripped out the vulnerable adhesive joints, and replaced them with fully welded, unbreakable tubing. One failure, one rapid, permanent fix. Problem solved. Now, let's look at NASA's highly anticipated Orion spacecraft, explicitly designed for deep space lunar missions. NASA went in the exact opposite direction, pouring a staggering $23 million into developing the Universal Waste Management System, or UWMS. It features a custom 3D-printed titanium impeller, supposedly over-engineered to withstand the absolute harshest environments in the cosmos. But recently, during the critical Artemis II mission in April 2026, that $23 million masterpiece became a spectacular headache. Just hours into the historic flight toward the moon, the high-tech suction fan mysteriously jammed. Then, exposed to the brutal, unforgiving cold of deep space, the intricate disposal lines literally froze solid, creating an impenetrable blockage of ice and urine. So, what happens when your multi-million-dollar space toilet completely dies halfway to the moon? You guessed it. Highly trained, brilliant astronauts were forced to resort to using crude, collapsible backup bags. It was a stark, humiliating reminder that in the deadly vacuum of space, extreme complexity often breeds catastrophic failure. SpaceX proved that a simple, rapidly upgradable design almost always beats an over-engineered, massively expensive system that is physically impossible to fix on the fly. The reality of human spaceflight has fundamentally transformed. We have officially evolved from violently strapping humans into agonizing flying metal coffins just to survive, to engineering psychologically supportive habitats that actually allow explorers to thrive. The era of pure, brutal endurance is dead. Welcome to the age of orbital comfort. If you want to uncover more explosive truths and hidden engineering secrets about our universe, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Astro Trivia. We will see you in the next mission.